Living in London and lost my keys.
Dreamt that I was living in London in an apartment that I've lived in before in other dreams, but the location was previously unknown to me. I visited neighbors who are IRL friends and attempted to help make scrambled eggs for them, but the kitchen was a mess, very unlike this friend's actual kitchen, and the pot the eggs were in caught on fire, as did a nearby teacup. Left to visit parents in the US. Came back but could not find unit keys and had to sleep in a mythical-looking pool in the apartment building basement.
I was in the woods and met God in the form of a deer. He kept trying to tell me to do something important, but I refused to listen because he sounded like Andre the Giant instead of Morgan Freeman. Because of my impudence he cursed me and I awoke to a spider biting my arm. It's swollen now and itches. Artistic creativity was illegal.
I dreamt that the US government made a law called Article 56, saying that all forms of drawing, painting, etc. were illegal without proper licensing. This includes everything from commissions to hentai. Even showing your art on social media without a license would get you fined. To add to this, even if you were licensed, you had to send it to the government for approval. This took 6 to 8 weeks, and if the art was deemed inappropriate, it was destroyed and the artist was fined. After a while, the government realized that people were still trading lewd art illegally, and so they would arrest you if you were found with any lewd artistry on your computer or in your home.
Last night I dreamt.
It was post-pandemic and I was in a giant stadium watching a baseball game. All of a sudden one of the giant TVs started playing an ad, "Hey Siri, why does McDonald's Coke taste better?" Then a cacophony of smartphones rang out, "Here's what I found on the web." Then a deafening silence fell over the stadium and I woke up.
I dreamt that I stole Kanye West's weed.
I only remember this dream because it was uncomfortably cohesive. 2 nights ago I dreamt that I flew out to LA, Airbnb rented the Kardashian mansion, got shown the grounds by Kim herself, then as soon as she left I opened his sock drawer and stole Kanye West's weed stash and then promptly woke up.
No mask in public is the new naked in public.
Am I the only one? I had a few dreams where I realized relatedly that I didn't have a mask on, then proceeded to get embarrassed and hide. Thought it was funny since I felt as exposed as when I have the naked in public dream.
The Ring of Power.
My stepmom took over the world with an army of robots, and me, being part of the resistance, needed to stop her. While in an auditorium we managed to tackle her and I steal her ring of power, the reason she took over the world. I'm now being chased by robots and starting to panic. They can't get the ring. So I do what anyone would do. I ate it. Just right into my mouth and swallow. The robots capture me and take me to my stepmom, who is no longer evil because she doesn't have the ring. Now I'm being interviewed by a bunch of people because I'm a hero, forget about my team. And that's how I saved the world, by panicking.
Death is a bureaucracy, do not lose your papers.
One time I was running a fever of 41 degrees Celsius, and I was having a bad time. It was one of those fevers where you are both hot and cold in bed, and you wish for anything to stop the shakes. Suddenly I found myself on a cobblestone street with a thick gray mist that made everything look like it was gray, and I heard people screaming for help, so naturally, I started walking towards the voices, and I bumped into a person, can't remember if it was a guy or a girl, and asked it what was wrong. The person didn't even notice me, and kept yelling for help, and for somebody, and even though I asked them to stop yelling they didn't notice me, so it took me a while, but I figured out they could neither hear me nor feel me at all, and that they were locked in place by some sort of uncanny thing, which scared me and prompted me to run. I ended up in some DMV kind of building with a skeleton smoking on the steps, only that it was not a skeleton at all, it was some sort of creature with leathery black skin and white markings that reminded me of a human skeleton. The creature made a gesture that I should get in, and I was so marveled by it that I went up the stairs and into the DMV building. And it was the most bureaucratic building I have ever seen. Instrumental jazz music, lines, those weird ropes they put to make the lines, desks, and a waiting area with those awful plastic seats they have. So I see more of these creatures among with some bizarre people sitting in the area, and one of the creatures tells me to grab a number, and I remember my number was 30, lucky me, if not that the current number was 12, so I sat down and waited while looking around. Some creatures were older and had grayer skin, some of them wore ties and glasses, and in the waiting area you could see people with folders of papers and case files, and I was just a dude sitting down. And what I remember about that part was that it was so boring. I had to sit down and watch people go before me, and then being either led outside, or being led to another area, or being greeted by another creature, and led to another area behind the desks. So it must have been about 40 minutes when I hear my number, and I go where the screen told me to go, and I get a very old-looking creature with that look that the people who work in bureaucracy has, you know, that look, and asks for my name. I give it to him, the creature checks the system and... I don't have you on my screen, may I see your death receipt? My what? Your death receipt, it's a comprobant, English is not my mother tongue, this is all in Spanish, you should have one. But I don't have one. You don't have one? Yeah. The creature looks at me like it is expecting something. What do I do? Well, if you are not on the system, and you don't have a comprobant of death, then leave. What? Leave. And then I woke up, no sweat, no cold, no fever, I just woke up like that. Did I die? I do not know, but, moral of the story, if you die, get a hold of your papers, otherwise you'll end up in limbo like those people until you have a case file.
I was a dude who was engaged and madly in love with a girl, but I suspected she was a zombie.
I am originally a girl, so I dreamt I was this fancy man, with my fancy man male best friend, who looked like my female best friend, but a male, and I was madly in love with this super beautiful lady, and engaged to her. So suddenly my friend was like, "Don't you suspect your fiancé is a zombie? Why was that you asking?" Cause she was extra perfect for me, so there must be something wrong. She was actually real me, which was nice to know. And I was like, yep, that totally makes sense, let's do some weird testing to find the zombie in her. Well, we didn't find a zombie, so we searched for a vampire, cause that was the second best option. After doing weird experiments of garlic and silver, well, no vampire, but the end was that my BFF mom, who I adore and respect a lot, is the zombie, but didn't want to inform anyone. It was an epic ride that sounds boring writing it out, so I hope you enjoyed that. And now I wasn't watching a movie before sleep.
Over the lip of insanity and into the abyss.
One time I dreamt I was driving my big orange Chevy to work, third shift at a truck stop about 30 miles from my home, but I was late and one of the towns I had to pass through had closed their gates for the night, think like King Kong giant gates, but I pushed them open with my car, and when I passed through, the scenery changed and the ground became a giant bald man's head in black and white. I drove over the curve of the skull as a disembodied narrator's voice said, "Over the lip of insanity and into the abyss." Then everything disappeared, including the car, and I was falling down an elevator shaft. When I hit bottom, everything was dark, but I could hear loud, stomping footsteps coming toward me. That's when I woke up in a cold sweat. No more B-movies at bedtime.
I went on an adventure as Steve Carell, helped a pirate start a bakery, and caused an amazing watery light show in a Minecraft boat.
This is by far one of my weirdest dreams. I was watching a movie called Hello Mike starring Steve Carell and his friends dropped into a post-apocalyptic Minecraft world where they have been trapped underwater to hide from what I assume are non-Minecraft people. After some looking around, I eventually set out for a creeper farm that was out above the world for some reason, and this was all laid out in emotional fashion, Steve pointing up to the sand cover far above their watery home and saying, "Okay, what do I need to know about what's up there?" All my friends said was just be careful. Once I got up there, I was carrying Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian with me, so I assume Steve's motive changed. After narrowly avoiding a huge crowd of beach-going real people and several police officers, I set off on a Minecraft boat out into the vast ocean. After some time I reached a floating house, stood above the water like on stilts, and I entered. Inside was a long expanse of shops and otherworldly oceanic gizmos and creatures and salespeople. Think Galaxy's Edge if it were on the boat from the SpongeBob movie. Anyway, it would seem that my brain wanted me to think that I had been here before, so it synthesized some memories of a previous dream where the first salesperson on the left owed me a favor. He was a pirate-type guy unhappy with his situation, dreaming of owning a bakery. I assume the fake memory wanted me to believe I made him believe in his dreams. I recommend you hide your friend, referring to the child, then handing me a small box and disappearing from my eye line. I continued through the corridor, and I decided to open the lobster trap style box. Inside was a small rubber ball with little flagella things on it, so it looked like one of those tiny cheap spiked balls that are usually in gift bags. It jumped out into my hand. "You rescued me. I owe you a favor," it said to me, almost telepathically. I continued when I heard shouting. The shop was being boarded by pirates. I ran down to the back end of the building, still traveling the same direction, and reaching a door. As the first man rolled past me tied to a rolling chair, he said, "Run, dude," and rolled into a closet. I jumped out of the door and landed in a Minecraft boat. As I was floating away, seemingly stuck at a slow drifting speed, toward an island in the distance, the captain poked his head out of the door. "So, you thought you could run? Well, I'll acknowledge that you tried. I'll blow you out of the water instead of slitting your throat." He then loaded the shop's seemingly built-in cannons. As I struggled to float away faster, the cannons seemed to fire at the water, causing huge waves. I was rocked as I got nowhere, and just as things seemed lost, a blue glare from beside me caught my eye. The ball I had freed was in my right hand. Remembering the message, it seemed to call to me again. Then energy and light emanated from it. It half disappeared, sort of taking the form of the energy light show around me. The waves grew bigger, but they aimed in the opposite direction. The captain was shocked, then blown into the center of the shop, which was being ripped open from the force of the waves. The captain exploded in a giant ball of energized water. The ball thanked me and disappeared, and the waves fell silent. Suddenly, the now Baron was transformed into a bakery-style house with 2 conveyor belts above the water. Suddenly my brain wrote a song. I don't remember the words exactly, but the chorus told me that this was the first man making his living in the remains of the shop. There were also some verses about how if the baked goods move too quickly or slowly along the conveyor belts that they'll taste like crap. As the first man looked back at me, headed for the island, he thanked me and I waved goodbye. I turned around, and set out to finish what I had started. Then I woke up. I was real invested in the dream, to be honest, a bit disappointed that it ended. But yeah, that's my weird recent dream.